Thank you, Undersecretary Goddess. Magandang hapon po. Kumusta pa kayo? Philippines, this is big. This is really amazing. From diagnostic to PFM reform action plans, and from reform plans to implementation. You are strengthening fiscal resilience through PFM reforms. And to discuss all this, we have an amazing panel today. During this PEFA 25 years celebratory week, the world is watching through live streaming, and we have 39 more minutes to bring Philippines PFM example to the world. Shall we do it? Yes. Thank you. First, may I take this opportunity to welcome Secretary Kim Robert De Leon, Department of Budget Management, onto the dais, please. Thank you. Yes. I now invite Undersecretary Nino Raymond Albina from Department of Finance. May I invite Assistant Commissioner Roy Ussel onto the dais from the Commission of Audit. Thank you. I now invite Andrew Jeffries, Country Director, Asian Development Bank. Asian Development Bank, as many of you know, is the newest PEFA partner. I invite Country Representative of UNICEF, Kayun Sun Kim, onto the dais, please. Kim. And finally, let me have the honor of welcoming Country Director Benedict Gazon, AFD France, onto the dais. France is a founding partner of PEFA. Very glad to have you here. Friends, as you can see, we have two distinct groups. We have three top government officials, leaders responsible for the entire PFM cycle, budget preparation, execution, and evaluation. And we have three eminent development partners who collaborated with the government in making all this so seamless. Let's dive a little bit deeper. I'll ask a lead question to the panel, and what I would request is to respond in 3 minutes, so that we have a second round after the first round. So let me start with Secretary De Leon. You did it really, really well. It's not just PEFA Assessment 2025, it's not PEFA plus plus. You made it PEFA plus 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 plus, making us think in Washington, DC, something new term we'll have to consider in the times to come. So now you have the Philippines has a clear reform road plan and an action plan. What will be your top priorities during the next 2 years to ensure that the reforms are going to move beyond the plan, beyond the book, and become institutionalized across the government?
Thank you very much for that question. And I think our plan is clear. It's eye on the finish line. Our finish line is in 2 years. That's really a near term, and we have identified or zeroed in on 4 mission critical and 4 quick win intervention. So we really have to deliver based on these identified indicators. And we also have to leverage on its possible system-wide impact through strengthening fiscal discipline, improving efficiency and transparency in the PFM sector, accelerate our digital transformation, and enhancing responsiveness to risk and service delivery needs. In order to do this, we also have to strengthen oversight, accountability, and transparency, not only through the online monitoring tool that we saw earlier, but also through the various oversight functions that we share with DOF and with the Commission on Audit. So we also would like to drive a results-oriented implementation, because as we've seen We tend to identify several key interventions in our earlier version of the roadmap, but now we really have to focus on what we can deliver as tangible results come 2028. So my time is actually ticking. 2028 is really near. And with all these 14 mission critical reforms and 4 quick wins, the goal is to make sure that we will deliver. And this will not just be left as promises.
Wonderful. We will deliver. That's wonderful to hear from you, Secretary. Let me now turn to Undersecretary Alvina. So many countries in the world these days are facing fiscal pressures, and Philippines is no exception. Philippines is facing increasing fiscal pressures on and also climate risks and demands on public investments. How do you think these efforts towards stronger PFM are going to help governments make better fiscal decisions while maintaining resilience and investor confidence, most importantly?
Thank you, Srinivas, and good afternoon to my fellow panelists. Um, I'd like to thank, of course, ADB first for this important forum, and if I will borrow the words of President, that this is pivotal, a pivotal moment as we pursue the PFM reform. To answer your question, I'd like to frame it from the perspective where we view PFM as allowing us to make better fiscal decisions because they give us clearer, more timely, and realistic view of public finances. This may sound cliche, but it is very pragmatic, and as we all know, PFM is inherent in public administration and governance simply because government cannot make good fiscal decisions if the numbers or official statistics are not coming on time, if they are fragmented, if they are also inconsistent. So we need not only we need not know only what or how much we will be appropriating in our budget, but whether cash will be available, sustainable as well, whether procurement projects are moving, payments are being made on time, and borrowing levels remains prudent, and if fiscal risks are already building up. This is very important because the Philippine government is decisive in sustaining the growth momentum, funding priority infrastructure projects, protecting social services, responding to climate and disaster risk, and maintaining the debt levels at a sustainable level. And when we talk about our current debt, our revenue collections, the procurement activities, the expenditures, including the deficit, decisions on these fiscal concerns must be seen from a larger perspective and not just individually, as I have mentioned. I think I'll make 3 very brief points. One is we view PFM as it helps government manage fiscal risks ahead or earlier. As mentioned previously, fiscal risk is no longer about deficit or debt level. We now factor in climate risks, disaster costs, contingent liabilities, sudden shocks, and effects of implementation delays of projects. And this is why it's important that when we have an integrated PFM system, we see linkages across broader areas. And that is going to be very helpful in managing our fiscal risks. The second point is that the PFM improves the quality of our spending decisions and how we allocate on priorities. As we all know, fiscal space is limited, but the demands for allocations are increasing. And we need to continuously fund infrastructure projects, health, education, social protection, among others. Earlier, Director Joy showed us the linkages between MTFF, the PDP, and how we translate this into measurable levels. And as I have learned from DBM friends, a credible budget is a spending plan translated into a public commitment. And therefore, once a program is included in the budget, citizens, agencies, and all stakeholders expect that things are going to move. So stronger PFM will be able to help us make that commitment more realistic and executable. And this is also important at the local level. Many public services are first felt at the ground level. So roads, health facilities, education, social protection, the very basic services. So stronger PFM should also help LGUs plan better, strengthen the revenue mobilization systems, manage expenditures more effectively. The last point that I wish to make is how PFM supports boosting higher voluntary tax compliance and morale, confidence also in the for investors, and of course with our development partners. We all know that when citizens judge government by the services rendered, investors also judge government by predictability and how we measure up to targets and to our commitments. And they both require credible public finances. For the Filipino public, stronger PFM helps make the nexus or link between what they pay, the taxes they pay to the government, and the services they get out of these payments to the government. And that supports tax morale and voluntary compliance when there is high visibility of what we are collecting from the public. For investors and development partners, the strong PFM signals that the government plans are really backed by credible and realistic financing, prudent borrowing strategies, and strong risk assessment. I think the recent global transaction where the Republic issued its bond was more than 4 times oversubscribed, and that is a clear indication also of trust in credibility and trust in the Philippine government. So just to summarize, we don't see PFM as an ordinary back office or administrative reform or function, but it is really an important and strategic reform priority that will help us weave together the elements of tax, resource spending, procurement, accountability, and satisfaction of the Filipino people that we serve.
Thank you, Undersecretary. What you said is music to my ears. We keep trying to spread this message of the importance of PFM all over, and you indicated also the interconnected nature of PFM systems. That also takes me to this question of, like, it's clear that from what both of you said, PFM systems in the country are modernizing. If financial management systems are modernizing, what about audit? Let me turn to Commissioner Ursel. Like, how can audit and accountability mechanisms evolve to both safeguard public resources and support innovation and reforms? Because sometimes these may seem contradictory, that like if you are too much of safeguards will slow down innovation is a fear.
Thank you, Srinivas. Good afternoon to my panelists, fellow panelists, and to the ladies and gentlemen in the audience. Now, on the topic on strengthening fiscal resilience through PFM reforms, I would respond that from the standpoint of the Commission on Audit. As the supreme audit institution of the Philippines, in order to effectively safeguard public resources and support innovation and reforms implemented by its audit clientele, COA's review and examination strategies, approaches, techniques, and methodologies have to evolve and adapt to the recent trends in technology being practiced and in place in its working environment. COA has to address this concern by balancing 3 particular aspects that are involved in safeguarding public resources and support to management's innovations and reforms, namely, exacting compliance with relevant laws, rules, and regulations. That's one. Second, adoption and keeping at pace with technology-driven audit techniques and methodologies. And the third, the observance of the prescribed and relevant accounting and auditing standards that need to be implemented. In this regard, the ongoing deliberation and eventually the passage of the revised State Audit Code of the Philippines could provide renewed legal basis for COA to perform its constitutional authority within the purview of its recent audit environment. Also, one of the identified strategic focus areas of COA, as stated in our strategic plan, is the digitalization and the extensive use of information technology in audit to discard and replace manual and inefficient audit methodologies and procedures. Likewise, the proper implementation of the so-called risk-based audit approach and the effective implementation likewise of internal control systems could enhance audit effectiveness and timeliness of audit results while promoting efficiency and economy in the use of its resources in the conduct of its audit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. So the legal basis is something which really stuck to me. It's all the legal basis strengthening is something fundamental and foundational to accountability work. Let me turn to ADB Country Director Andrew. ADB has accompanied Philippines throughout this reform journey, and that we can all see from diagnostic to design and now implementation. Looking back, what lessons from the Philippines experience may be relevant to other countries, where can development partners add, in your opinion, the greatest value in implementing these reforms?
Thank you for the question. I guess the first relevant lesson would be the importance of a government-led approach and a unified development partner support of that approach. You know, taking a step back from public financial management, it's actually a broader lesson. Take any development challenge, disaster risk management, anything. There tends to be, and there can be, certain technical assistance from one development partner, another technical assistance from another, to various government agencies, and it can be fragmented and not aligned. And I think over the last many years, development partners have made big efforts to be more coordinated. But I think that here, for this specific PFM roadmap, there's a very targeted, specific roadmap, and development partners have taken portions of it and coordinated closely. So that would be the first. Another one is it's more meaningful if diagnostics are done and then have a direct link to action and financing. Again, going back to, you could do a diagnostic study on an issue, and that's a standalone product, and it's valuable, but then anything acting on that could be done by another development partner or done later, and lack of kind of smooth continuity. And so in this situation, you have a very concrete plan from the roadmap that was derived from multifaceted diagnostics, and then segueing into for example, at ADB, we have the Public Financial Management Reform Program, a policy-based lending. So that's ongoing engagement with investment and incentive to implement and make some of the changes, and some of them are not easy, within government or within regulations and the like. So another one is sustained engagement over time. And the ADB, as you mentioned, thank you for that, leading the diagnostics work, which led directly to the roadmap, and now with development partners, implementing that roadmap, and so. There needs to be continuity and momentum from kind of continued, sustained engagement. And I guess the last would just be that this is transferable. This process and the concrete roadmap and all the actions and support is replicable. And so any reform-minded developing member country in the region can learn and value from this process. So I'll stop there on lessons. I don't know where I am on time, but for how development partners can add value, okay, first and foremost, it goes back to my first point, coordinated effort and convening. We've made an effort in our role with this to convene development partners, convene experts. And I think it's important because development partners, I think a very value add that can be brought, and again, this is more broad than just PFM, is something that we've seen in another country that might be similar or replicable or valuable for the context of the Philippines, or vice versa. So it's bringing good practices, not just developed country good practices, but challenges faced by other countries that maybe have some similar issues and what worked that may be relevant. That's a very important value add from development partners. And again, I think another one is just being very cognizant and focused on the country systems and working, supporting the Philippines PFM systems. And then there's the central government level, and then there's the LGU level, and then here in the Philippines, we have the BARM, the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao. So each has unique challenges and needs a tailored approach, and that needs to be, taken up by development partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. It also reminds me what World Bank President Ajay Banga keeps saying: make replicable models. Copy but replicate. You don't need to reinvent. So find what works and replicate it. Thank you so much. And this example of Philippines is quite replicable, the way it all evolved. So let me turn to country representative Kim from UNICEF. Philippines has done something unique, integrated climate, gender, child responsiveness, and disaster responsive elements of PFM in the reform agenda. Why is it important that modern PFM systems need to look beyond financial compliance and focus on development outcomes?
Thank you for that interesting question. And good afternoon, everybody. Magandang hapon. Previous speakers emphasized how PFM is not just technical exercise, how we should go beyond spending funds according to rules and procedures, and we should go beyond financial compliance. Therefore, PFM is only a starting point. Then, the more important question, or more, I guess, concrete and powerful question that we should ask is this: are public resources actually improving lives, especially the lives of children, and not just children, right? Especially the children who are the most vulnerable and the most in need. From the human capital development perspective, we all know that the Philippines sits at a critical moment. It is in the midst of a demographic window of opportunity with a large working age population where more than 40% of the population is regarded as youth. But this population dividend is not automatic and is closing soon. The fertility rate in 1990s in this country used to be 4.3%. The latest DHS data indicates 1.7%. That means the society is aging and this trend might be irreversible, right? Then the economic growth, sustainable economic growth and development depends on one thing: whether today's investments are building children's health, nutrition, education, protection, resilience, and also contributing to equal opportunities. So put simply, the country can only grow rich before it grows old if it invests in its children now, because there is this risk of the country becoming old while it's still poor. So building human capital and ensuring that children are equipped to become productive and resilient citizens, this is critical. And if there is only one message that I want you to remember, could be this: the investment on children or human capital should be now. Now, as the Philippines progresses to upper middle income status, expectations on public finance systems are higher. Economic growth alone is not sufficient. The growth that we are talking about must be inclusive and equitable. Modern PFM systems therefore need to ensure that public resources reach those who need them most, reduce disparities, and deliver quality services across regions and population groups. Frameworks such as climate responsive, gender responsive, disaster risk responsive, and child responsive PMF help government assess how public resources are managed, allocated, and spent while strengthening the government's ability to ensure that public resources contribute to national development priorities holistically across the sectors and policy objectives. So the Child Responsive PFM or PEFA framework, for instance, provides a structured approach to examine whether PFM systems are adequate, accountable, effective, efficient, equitable, and transparent in delivering results for children. They have identified gaps across the PFM systems to ensure that children's needs and rights are systematically considered in physical decision-making. Simply put, the framework shifts the focus from how the money is spent to what that money achieves. What's remarkable about the Philippines is the willingness to embrace this necessary reform and embrace innovation and lead in Southeast Asia on those reform agenda. The Philippines stands out globally as a pioneer, one of the first countries to pilot the child-responsive PFM PEFA module, acknowledging that effective public investments in children are foundational to the country's long-term social and economic growth, development, and therefore the country's future. Further, the government has acknowledged that children are a shared responsibility across multiple actors, across sectors, as I mentioned, involving both national and subnational levels of government. Delivering results for children is not only about line agencies with DOH, with DepEd, or with DSWD, but also about the central role of fiscal and budget institutions in enabling, aligning, and sustaining these investments at the national, but also at the local level. In a highly developed system like the Philippines, that is critical. So the Philippines government has already started implementing policy and process reforms in response to the child responsive PFM assessment. Key results achieved to date include institutionalizing the child budget and expenditure tagging systems, what we call CPET, adopted August last year, and ongoing development of policy notes. It's a package to support decision-making. A further priority is to adopt an overarching child-responsive PFM, the overall framework. So together, these measures will help ensure that the assessment findings do not remain confined to a report, but are systematically embedded within ongoing PFM reforms, systems, and processes. So building on this momentum, this work has been central to UNICEF's work on public finance in partnership with the European Union through the Public Finance Facility under the leadership and ownership of the government of the Philippines. So for UNICEF and for us, a strong PFM system is not just technical architecture, it is the mechanism that enables governments to fulfill their responsibility to realize the rights of the child as the duty bearer.
Thank you very much, Kim. You really brought into focus the needs of children, and Philippines seems to be doing super good on that. Let me now turn to Country Director AFD Benedict. AFD has been a strong partner advancing climate responsive PFM globally. From your perspective, how can Philippines use its PFM reform roadmap to better integrate climate risks into planning, budgeting, and investing decisions?
Maraming magandang hapon, sorry. Maraming salamat is for later on. So, hi everybody. Thank you for this question. So indeed, globally, AFD is really a strong partner in terms of climate responsive public financial management. It reflects two long traditions that France has. First, supporting sound public financial management, and second, supporting climate action. Which is a strong pillar of French diplomacy. So in France, we have a very dense legal, institutional, and oversight framework in terms of PFM. We have strong systems of controls, and we place strong emphasis on transparency and accountability. For example, we have adopted the law on transparency in public life in 2013. We have strong rules on conflicts of interest, asset declaration for public officials. We have systems to protect whistleblowers, etc., etc. So, like any country, we have our problems. But as a whole, this is the traditions that shape the way that French institutions, including AFD, approach governance and public finance. Now, on climate, concerning climate issues, as a development bank, AFD introduced climate considerations quite early in our operations. We developed tools to measure climate co-benefits, assess climate risks, and integrate climate policies across cutting issues in many public policies. So, and since the Paris Agreement in 2015, of course, we have been even more committed to support this global agenda. So that's a legacy we are fighting for, defending. In the Philippines, what we did, we have more or less 15 years of operations here, and we are working a lot with co-financiers, with partners, and our first operation was in 2009, joining an ADB program on local government finance and fiscal decentralization. So it comes from a long time ago. Over the years, we focused more on climate issues, disaster risk resilience, resilience of ecosystems, but also communities. And our main instrument is policy-based loan. And as such, it's important to us to understand how public resources are managed and how public expenditures are executed. So, supporting the PEFA was for us a very natural step, and we are very glad to have this opportunity. We hope that our contribution, which was dedicated to disaster risk management, brought added value. It will shape what we will do on the future step. We will continue supporting this critical issue. We will be also mobilizing EU instruments. We have a European procurement partnership facilities that we will be using to support to support the SFA9 strategic focus area on the RR. So it's something that is that can be tailor-based and on demand and needs. So we have to talk further to design the proper instruments. But we are very happy to be able to be seen and to be present as Team Europe, because it's an instrument that the AFD can mobilize, but also we have our implementing agency Expertise France, GIZ also is involved in that. So yes, we hope very much that the Philippines, the Philippine government will use any of this leverage to go further. It's a very long process. My colleagues already mentioned that it's an effort that has to be sustained over years, over time. And we value a lot the engagement of the government in that. And it's critical for us to build trust and investor confidence, which is critical when you are a development bank partner, but bank also. Thank you.
True. Thank you very much, country director. I already saw 3 times our friend showed me the time check, which means I may not have time for a full second round, but maybe let's venture out into one quick word or phrase from each of the panelists, if I make a request, in perhaps less than 30 seconds each. So fast forward 2028. What's the headline? What's the key word that you would best capture the impact of PFM reforms roadmap on Philippines and its people to the citizen?
For us, our target headline for 2028 is this: stronger institutions, better and timely services. PFM reforms deliver results for every Filipino.
Wonderful.
I was thinking of 2 headlines. One is Philippine PFM equals strong fiscal health. And ambitiously, Philippine PFM ready for the next PEFA.
Ready. Wonderful.
Plus. Trying to cover as many areas as we can, and how PFM could buttress all the goals in the different areas that we want to be measured in.
Wonderful.
For COA, it would be accountability revolution, public trust in government spending at all-time high.
Superb. Thank you.
Okay, I know Sec Kim mentioned he has a 2-year window, so I guess 2028 is the relative time frame for that. I guess I'll say the Philippines PFM reforms hailed as a replicable global model for good governance.
Replicable. Wonderful.
The headline that we would love to see is public finance reform is delivering impactful changes in the lives of every child and their families. By 2028, we want the better budget and expenditure for children to be translated into better nutrition, improved learning outcomes, stronger and more accessible health services, more effective social protection, and greater resilience to shocks and disasters for every child.
Super. Budget works for the children. Wonderful. Thank you.
I take all the previous messages and I add that it's a continuous effort. And in French, we said bon courage. So bon courage. All the best for the next steps.
Super. Thank you. Thank you very much, panel. As I conclude the panel, as you have seen, this is very exciting and interesting. What I take away is, when government's commitment, leadership, will is there, and development partners come together with the right tools and mechanisms, transformative impact is possible. And that's what's happening in Philippines. Philippines, thanks a lot for giving us a model which we can showcase to the world of how good practice, what is a good practice in public financial management reform trajectory. I have no doubt Philippines PFM reforms are going to be transformative in the times to come, faster, quicker, and enabling Philippines' progress towards upper middle income status. Thank you everyone. Thank you one and all.